What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about NIO. I want to go over some of the data points, break it down on what's really moving it today, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So NIO is down 5%, 514 the low, 543 the high, and 46.8 million shares being traded, 51.4 is the average. So a couple of things that's really influencing the broader market. One is Black Friday data. So that's kind of popping the likelihood of a cut for the upcoming December 10th meeting. And as what I kind of mentioned in my weekend video, NIO is going to get largely moved through algorithmic trading. So that's one kind of attributing factor. But NIO also did announce their actual numbers. So NIO provides November 2025 delivery update. So they did deliver 36,275, which is an increase of 76.3% year over year. Breakdown 18,393 associated to NIO, 11,794 for Envo, and then just over 6,000 for Firefly. So pretty good stuff. Goes over the breakdown right here. So the NIO is up 7.3% month over month. Envo 31.99% month over month, and then 2.9 month over month. So in general, this is good stuff, especially if you compare it to previous months. But still, a lot of the broader market is kind of looking at, can they hit their very ambitious Q4 targets? And I think just the consensus is no. And again, a lot of that is piggybacking off of NIO's most recent earnings, some comments associated to that, and no different than what Xpeng also mentioned. So Xpeng and NIO plan for big hit to quarterly goals. So in general, not necessarily the best. So even though these were kind of on point numbers, still the market's hesitant about Q4. And I know I've stated this in the past, but NIO does this to themselves. They give themselves very high targets that sometimes they can't hit. And we've seen that throughout 2024. They give constant updates, they don't hit it, and then they wonder why they go down. At the same time, they just talk quite a lot. There's way too many management members and just leaked information that nothing's a surprise nowadays for NIO. So I think in general, they are making some pretty good improvement, but still, it is what it is. That's kind of the nature of the game. But aside from that, though, looking at shorts, they are returning 663,000 shares. So this is why I like to analyze this type of information, because there's kind of a lot of available shares. So right now there's about more than 10 million, and it is fairly cheap to short NIO. So if they really wanted to double down, they could easily do that. But the fact that they're not kind of is bullish if you kind of think about it. But at the time, like I said, they are returning 663,000 shares. 11.53% of the free floats being shorted, works to be 159.57 million shares overall being shorted. Still does show some signs of naked shorting. So right now, shares on loan 104.68 million, and then number of shares being shorted 159. So still the math isn't really jiving for that. Associated to options, 5.6 million in calls, 3.2 in puts, and then 49% of all the options being done are bearish in nature, most of which was done in the first half of the trading day. Though you can kind of see after all the suppression has taken hold of the stock price, they just kind of sit back and relax for the most part. But from a bull standpoint, you see a consensus for it to be roughly around that 550 to 6. So still some optimism for it to recover is on the table. Bears are anticipating for it to be sub 5. So we're kind of level ground right now. Only about 4 transactions occurring on the secondary market above $100,000. One is a sell, 3 buys. So big money is kind of buying the dip, not to the same magnitude as they were in the past, but still good to see some level of buying. These are all the transactions occurring on the dark pool though. So dark pool is often enough used by hedge funds as well as shorts. So you can kind of see a lot of these hold numbers that typically is hedge funds. So hedge funds are fairly active, and given the price action today, it is fair to assume some of them are liquidating. Again, I feel like it might be because of macro conditions, not necessarily because of these numbers, because these numbers were pretty good for month over month increases as well as year over year. But still, like if you're having fears about consumers and rate cuts and everything, there's just a lot of crap in the broader market. So maybe some institutions are just saying like, I'm done, peace out for at least the next little bit. And that's something as well we've seen with the money market fund, a lot of money leaving both crypto and equity to go back into money market. So there's still a certain level of fear right now with that 523 right below this S1. So 526 is going to be that strong support, and then 473 followed by 611, the next strong target / resistance points. And I'm looking at the 1-day chart on a side note, looking at the 4-hour. So for those of you that want to day trade, swing trade, dollar cost average with it at 523, you have 521 and then 499 as support points. So if it does break below that 521, you are virtually staring off of a cliff, kind of. So 499 could potentially be on the table, and that would be rather crazy. There hasn't been any ratings that did come out or that were posted over the weekend, which was rather odd. But then again, I think the ADR doesn't really get that much attention, but still there was about 7-8 ratings that did come out from their last earnings, and they seem to not really care about NIO for whatever reason. Still could be posted over the next couple of trading days, but definitely it is very notable that analysts aren't really paying attention to kind of NIO anymore. So again, kind of goes to show just maybe better opportunities elsewhere or whatever else. But on the actual chart itself, you can kind of see how just we are breaking down. So it's been below that 10-day moving average since it looks like November the 6th. So absolutely horrific run and very little buyers during this time frame as well. So it's just unfortunate. Even looking at the market position though, you see a small amount of willing buyers up to roughly around that 510, give or take, and then that's it. So if, let's say, shorts do decide to spin the narrative and start to double down, then things could get very real very fast. That 200-day moving average might be potentially a bounce off point, but still, if it hits that 502, I don't think many people will be really happy or wanting to buy the dip. So let me know your general thoughts on NIO. I know, as I've stated, I think they've improved tenfold since I've started to cover them a couple of years back, but there's still just a lot of negativity associated to that. And I think in general, one thing that a lot of people have a hard time distinguishing is the difference between what happens operationally versus the stock price. Stock price, they are crazy discounted. It's not profitable, so you have to look at the PS ratio, and it is close to 1 right now. So I think all in all, there is going to be a lot of upside in the foreseeable future, but in the short term, if you're wanting to try and catch the bottom, it could be that potentially that 200-day moving average, but if that fails to hold, then you could see a little bit more of a significant push lower. So dollar cost averaging is the way to go, as I've openly mentioned. So let me know your thoughts on NIO. What's your viewpoint on their monthly numbers? One final thing, pop over to my Patreon if you're looking for some solid buy signals on stocks, options, crypto. Put out daily day trades, numerous swing trades, worthwhile to pop over there and check that out. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.